I rise as a frequent CEQA reform skeptic over the years. I've dissented on several pieces of legislation we've voted on in this House, some of which have passed, some of which have not, but I'm not one you'll find often saying CEQA's to blame for our ills. In fact, I think it's prevented some very bad things from happening. There'd be a giant mattress factory where a wildlife corridor now sits, and an oil well right near where my house, my former apartment used to sit, right in the middle of a neighborhood next to a community center, if not for CEQA. So a lot of good CEQA is done over the years. But as Joint Climate Committee chair for this body, I have to push myself as a legislator outside my comfort zone. And I think that this legislation starts to do that. I actually was surprised at the debate we've been having over this version of CEQA reform, in that it's really just a shot clock. It actually doesn't change CEQA at all. The analysis, the parties engaged, it still has a full process, and a lot of the sort of concurrent permitting issues that an important project will face that aren't necessarily CEQA related, but maybe about getting a Fish and Wildlife permit for stream bed alteration permitting, or the Public Utilities Commission needs to give you a certificate of public convenience and necessity. Those often are the issues that stall these projects. So as a skeptic, not just on the substance, but as somebody on process as well, was initially concerned. I didn't want to see this be opaque and sort of quote unquote jam through the budget. But that's why I really want to applaud the pro tem and the leadership of this House for bringing this whole discussion into the public eye, for making this transparent. Between the working group, the hearings held jointly at Senate Natural Resources and Water, the select committee that just ran through all these items last week, no one can assert, and I'm not hearing anyone do that throughout this entire host of infrastructure bills, that somehow this was done in the dark of night and no one knows about it. I think we all know what some of the issues are here, and I think the Senate has made this process better and has hopefully built a foundation for public trust in the future, where stakeholders know that they're not going to be excluded from our process and that we are listening and we're working through stuff. I don't think this is a perfect bill, and I think that there's actually a lot more work that needs to get done on CEQA reform even. That's something you won't often hear me say, but I truly do believe we need to go further. Not in every area, and not carte blanche. You can say that's picking winners and losers. I think it's investing in the future versus maybe doubling down on the past. And I do believe that this is the new era of policymaking where we need to make some choices. So I think it's a good thing that we've narrowed the scope of what's eligible here and really focused on things where there's consensus. But I want to flag a few items that I believe this House and collectively the big three here hopefully will put on their docket as unfinished business for the remainder of this session. When it comes to transmission, which right now we're dealing with a lot of our grid resilience by extending the life of these gas peakers that are right in the heart of disadvantaged communities, proposing to throw $1.2 billion on the line just to fire up to something like Ormond Beach or Los Alamitos that for years we've promised those communities will shut them down. Well, right now we're defaulting to those. What are we doing to accelerate the clean stuff to displace that in those very same communities? Through procurement, through grid upgrades like the Senator from San Diego and the Senator from Menlo Park are pursuing, manufacturing and siting of new resources on offshore wind, ZEV infrastructure, which is not in here, and even tough subjects like green hydrogen, which I believe actually we need to force ourselves to wrestle with and actually get to a place of yes if we're going to win both at the funding game and in this industrial heavy-duty landscape that demands some other kind of fuel source than electricity. I also believe that's the case in demand response and long-duration energy storage. So that's my list of unfinished business on the energy side. I also believe that's the case on wildfire, to my colleague from Bakersfield's critique. And I really hope that the Senate bond can start to double down on that effort. If we can make a serious commitment on getting wildfire resilience off the books, say, of utility ratepayers and into a resilience fund, I think we can make a lot of progress. On water as well, we know some of the controversial pieces fell out. And those are tough issues to wrestle with, but we still haven't solved our water resiliency crisis. We still missed a massive groundwater storage opportunity through these floods, and Southern California still doesn't have secure supplies for the future, and we're hunting everywhere. So we need to add those to the table too. Again, I believe the Senate's climate bond can be a part of that, but it can't just be money. It has to be digging deeper on these issues around permitting reform and not just CEQA. So I'll be supporting this measure today, but I hope that we all commit ourselves to stretching. Climate demands us to do that. And so with that, I respectfully ask for your aye vote.